What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hey, a Direct was announced. It's happening this week. Well, it's an Animal Crossing Direct. That's the only issue there for some people. Now, we did need an Animal Crossing Direct. We had talked about that. But we're going to go over when you can tune in, how long it'll be, and what you might expect at this Direct. Should be interesting. Also, we had a new Switch Lite color variant that was introduced online. We'll talk a bit about that and the idea I have for the next color, hopefully that comes soonish. We'll see about that. And then also, I kind of want to talk a little bit about an interesting set of comments from the developers around Gran Turismo as to maybe where some developers are heading going into next generation with the mindset of frame rate over resolution. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below with the bell icon on. That way you can stay up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. And you can also check back here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, as we do a big news roundup of all the different things going on in video games. And we're actually going to start today with Game Pass for the month, actually now, and then going a little further in. This was something else. We saw this slide here. That is an awesome lineup, right? But let's actually go down the list here and when you can expect these to be added to Game Pass, starting with Ninja Gaiden 2, which I actually really like. I like Ninja Gaiden 2 a lot. That's February 20th. Kingdom Hearts 3, by the way, getting added February 25th. 2 Point Hospital, February 25th. Wasteland Remastered, that's also February 25th. Yakuza 0, which it was great to see that. We heard that these were going to be happening, of course. That's February 26th. And then Jackbox Party Pack 3, February 27th. That is awesome. And then also, on top of that, if you have the Game Pass Ultimate for PC as well, you will have access to Indivisible, Reigns, Game of Thrones, 2 Point Hospital, Wasteland Remastered, and then Yakuza 0. That is a really good lineup that's going to happen next week. Like in a week, you'll be able to just grab these games off of Game Pass and start playing through them. Obviously, Kingdom Hearts 3 might be a good one to check out, although I guess you would have wanted to play the other Kingdom Hearts games. Those, of course, popped up just randomly on the Xbox. Talked about that yesterday, that those are there now. You can check them out, although I do still think there is a complete story, I believe, that is cheaper overall for the PlayStation, but if you only have an Xbox, I guess that would be the way to do it. Get 1.5, 2.5, and then you can, I guess, kind of read about 2.8 basically, and then head on to Kingdom Hearts 3. Awesome to see this, by the way, just kind of added in there for all these different games. Yakuza is another good one if you are brand new to the series. I mean, it's going to be right on Game Pass. So hey, props to Microsoft. They are really keeping up with this subscription service, and from what we've heard, it hasn't really been losing them money. I guess it has been making them an overwhelming amount of money, but they keep getting good additions, and even Xbox, or even Game Pass PC, I should say, with the Ultimate Game Pass subscription looked pretty good as well. Also, if you were a Baldurs Gate fan, you may remember, of course, Baldurs Gate 3 was announced. I believe that was actually Stadia that announced that. Technically, I believe Google worked with them to announce that, and people were really, really excited, but we haven't really seen any gameplay or any visuals, nothing really major from them yet. We were just waiting to hear from them about it and show it off somewhat. Well, it looks like we will finally see it. That's going to be February 27th. PAX East is where they're going to be showing this off, so you want to tune in. They're also going to have the entire event streamed, that appears, but if you're going to PAX East, they should have it there. It's going to be great for any fans to, I guess, check it out, maybe even play it some. It's going to be neat. And it does look like in kind of the trailer they put out that they were teasing the ability to have different choices going through, probably to, good guy or bad guy choices, or maybe just to change the entire story as you go through. But hey, really cool to see that, especially if you're a Baldur's Gate fan who's also going to PAX East. Make sure you stop by and check it out. Oh, and something else very strange that's going to be happening on February 27th is that the PlayStation forums, the community forums, are shutting down. This is on PlayStation's website. Now, there was a quick post, no real explanation why. My thought is that most people are having conversations outside of that forum, and they said, well, I guess we don't really need them anymore, because they do specifically cite things like Twitter, of course, and Instagram, and all the other social media platforms where you can discuss PlayStation. Apparently on the 27th of February, you won't be able to post there anymore. They're just getting rid of the forums. I don't know if they're doing something else community driven or whatnot. I also don't really know a lot of people who went to these forums exclusively as like their main go-to, but I'm sure there were some. It just kind of caught me off guard, and it seems everyone else at the PlayStation forums, although I also saw some people below the initial post by the community manager there who said, oh yeah, I forgot about this place. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with Animal Crossing right away. Look, we've talked about there being the possibility of a Nintendo Direct, seems like anyway, over the last month and a half, right? It keeps coming up. People are putting rumors out there occasionally. One thing that was rumored pretty recently was that there would be 2 directs in February. One of them would be an Animal Crossing Direct, and specifically February 20th was named, and that's actually when the Direct is. This was a tweet put out by Nintendo across all of their social media handles on Twitter, and it says, tune in on February 20th at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern for a roughly 25-minute live-streamed Animal Crossing New Horizons Direct featuring an in-depth look at Nook Inc.'s Deserted Island Getaway Package. They have a little card there that shows it all off and everything. Animal Crossing New Horizons. So, this is great for Animal Crossing fans, obviously, but I do understand, because I saw this online, a lot of people who are not Animal Crossing fans are waiting for this big general Nintendo Direct that everyone has been talking about again for the last month and a half. Yes, patience is wearing thin, and well, we're going to be getting towards the end of February now, and I get that because after Animal Crossing, there's really nothing dated at all. I mean, Xenoblade, of course, we assume is probably May or June, but after Animal Crossing, there's like nothing at all dated, like straight up. So that is, I think, a concern for people right now, right? Because I don't think they're going to go Animal Crossing and then just go straight to Xenoblade after that. I think there's going to be some other stuff thrown in there, smaller titles, probably another bigger title, and then we still need to find out about the holiday title. But I wouldn't worry too much about it because I do think a Direct will happen in the coming weeks. Could be first half of March, and then we don't have one again until, say, E3, obviously, around there, and then probably one again later on in the year in, like, the fall when we would expect it. So, like, 3 major Directs. I think that's actually a good schedule overall for Nintendo, considering they have these game-specific Directs like Animal Crossing. And one thing that I think a lot of people are hoping is that they do in some way address the issue with backing up or being able to at least save your island's progress, whether that's in its own way through like a menu system for online subscribers, or probably not locally. I mean, that probably won't happen. We already know it's 1 island per Switch, and you're not able to even transfer it from Switch to Switch if you get a new one. All this stuff sounds weird because it goes against what Nintendo's trying to do with the Switch, which just keeps selling you more and more of them. They want you to buy like 3 or 4 before this generation is over, like you specifically. So having all of your Animal Crossing stuff locked just to 1 Switch seems very, very odd. So that's one thing I would like to see addressed. And then, of course, you'll see, I'm sure, tons of features around customization and doing different things on the island. Trust me, 25 minutes is quite a while. So they'll have time, I'm sure, to show all of that off. And again, exciting for Animal Crossing fans to get this about a month before release, actually exactly a month before release. So look forward to that on Thursday. It'll be very, very interesting. And of course, you can also check back here where we'll be doing full coverage of the live stream after it's happened. Don't think we'll be actually live streaming this one, but we'll be taking notes and ready for you guys Newswave the following day to cover everything that happened. Next up, let's talk about that new Switch Lite. Yeah, again, this is something that I just talked about. It. They want to keep selling you Switch systems, right? That's the idea, so that one household ends up with like 3 or 4 Switch systems. They've already talked about this as being a strategy, so naturally releasing themed Switch systems is the way to do it. Remember that Animal Crossing Switch that's going to be coming out next month? They showed that off, and people went crazy ordering this thing. Then they showed this Switch Lite here, which is, according to them, their Coral Nintendo Switch Lite system. They say that arrives April 3rd. This was all shown off at a tweet, and then they put out a couple of stock images showing it off. And yeah, I saw a lot of people who got really, really excited over this color choice, and I think it's interesting Nintendo's doing kind of these like these pastel colors. I think it's good, right? Because it's different. Like, I don't think anyone was expecting a Coral Switch Lite to drop, but I do have to say, Nintendo, you gotta do a GameCube purple one. That would be amazing. If you do a GameCube purple Switch Lite, I'd be on that immediately. I did look at this Coral Switch Lite, and I don't have like the yellow one, and I don't really feel the need to grab this Switch Lite. I'm specifically holding out for a themed like full Switch, like not the Switch Lite, but like a full Switch, although a Switch Lite being themed around Metroid would probably get me to buy another one, but I'm hoping when Metroid Prime 4 is ready to go that year, because that will be a major focus for them in the year that it releases, I'm hoping part of that focus is for a full Switch. So we see this Coral Switch Lite, there's a chance that they continue to just release color after color of different like kind of these pastel kind of colors coming out. Hey, GameCube Purple, don't sleep on that, Nintendo. That would be a good one. I think it would sell pretty well. But then when we get back to these main Switch, overall Switch themes, definitely got to do some Metroid stuff there, and probably Breath of the Wild too, of course. Can we also talk a bit about, like, the Pro Controller? We haven't seen a themed Pro Controller in a while now, right? I know I have the Xenoblade one, and we've seen Smash, of course, but nothing major after that. That seems like another odd thing to kind of forget about there. But hey, the Coral Switch Lite coming out April 3rd, just a few weeks after the Animal Crossing Switch, and then who knows, maybe going into the summer, we'll get another one. So Nintendo is rolling along with their different themed Switch systems, and it makes sense for their strategy. Now I just got to figure out how to let you transfer your Animal Crossing island from your old one to the new Coral Switch Lite. Next up, let's talk about the new Gran Turismo. There's been a lot of talk about the next Gran Turismo possibly being a launch title for the PlayStation 5, and a lot of that probably has to do with, one, Forza will most likely be a launch title for the Series X, and two, car games tend to look very, very good, especially these simulation racing games. We've seen it since, I would say, even the PS2. Look, the PS1, I mean, it's the PS1, right? I mean, it looked good at the time, but we look at it now, we're like, ooh, the PS2 Gran Turismo, like Gran Turismo 4, still supports 1080i, and it actually looks decent enough in person, but back then, it was crazy. And then you see, of course, Gran Turismo, like Gran Turismo 6 on the PS3, then the latest one, Gran Turismo Sport. Yes, visually, car games can look really, really good, almost photorealistic. So it makes sense why they would want to have the next Gran Turismo kind of show up on the PlayStation 5 to kind of work to show some of the graphical power behind it. And it's a good game, obviously, to just put on in like a Walmart or something as a display, because people will look at that and say that it looks real. Oh no, that's being done by the PS5. Well, Yamauchi, who's the studio head behind Gran Turismo, had some comments that I was actually pretty excited about, because while resolution going into next generation has already been talked about for like 8K, I like the idea of frame rate being a focus by these different studios. I would say, let's conquer 4K resolution first before we talk about 8K and all of this stuff. Let's get 4K 60 down, right? But what about like 4K 120 frames? What do they have to say? I think display resolution-wise, 4K resolution is enough. Rather than a spatial resolution that you're talking about, I'm more interested in the advancements we can make in terms of the time resolution. In terms of frames per second, rather than staying at 60 frames per second, I'm more interested in raising it to 120 frames or even 240 frames. I think that's what's going to be changing the experience from here on forward. And I do like that idea, right? I like the idea of hearing, oh, we're going to go frame rate, because man, frame rate when it drops real bad, like 30 frames is already controversial for people because they've seen 60 frames. Like take Mario, just as an example, even on like the Switch, which is the weakest out of the major systems out now, right? Mario Odyssey at 60 frames is amazing. It feels great, right? But then you go up to some of the better looking games and they're like 30 frames on like other platforms, and it doesn't feel as good. I like the idea of 60, or in this case, 120 even, being a focus, and that works really well in shooters, racing games, but I would say most games overall. I know RPGs, like turn-based, don't necessarily need that frame rate because it's much slower, but 120 frames, 4K 120 frames, is that possible with next gen? Yeah, actually, yeah, probably. Especially with like racing games, I should say. Look, I think games that have that are a bit more taxing on the system will probably get 4K 60, hopefully. But it also comes down to what the developers want to do with it. They could probably do crazy effects all over the place while you're playing, and it's 30 frames because they opted for that. I would say turn it down a little bit, get 4K 60, and I think we're in good shape. But wow. 240 frames? I don't really know a lot of people who need that, but I guess if they want to kind of shoot for that, that technically means that 120 frames should be pretty much guaranteed for anyone with TVs with like 120 hertz display modes and all of that, or even monitors with like 144 hertz. That's exciting stuff to hear though, and I hope going next generation, it's more about the frame rate than the amount of pixels you can put on screen. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an update for Witcher 3 for the Switch. It did bring something that was really, really cool, and I like to see more games doing this. I know Civilization did something very similar where you can transfer your save data from like your PC, for example, if you're playing on there. You can also move your save data then to your Switch and take it with you. Looks like Witcher 3 took advantage of that same thing. This is actually kind of a list of the different patches and fixes and things they added here that starts with added touch control support, added save file integration for GOG, Steam, and versions of the game for the Switch from different regions, added more text languages, more graphical options that apparently cleans up and makes it look much better, specifically in handheld mode from what I've been hearing. I'll have to go back and check this myself. Multiple performance optimizations, and then a bunch of various visual and functional bugs, and then gameplay and crash fixes. I like the idea of going from Steam or GOG to your Switch. I think that's great. Like, that makes a ton of sense because then someone who plays primarily on PC has like a real reason, a function of the Switch for them, considering they can take it with them, and then when they come back, you transfer it back to your PC. So if you're a PC gamer and you hear about this, you know, you're saying, wow, the Switch actually makes sense for me. I don't really need a PS4 and Xbox One because I play the third-party games here. It does come down to exclusive though. Like if the PS4 is a system you're buying for Last of Us Part 2, well, you got to get the PS4, right? I get that, right? So but outside of that, if you're not as interested in some of these first parties, you might look at the Switch and say, well, that's the one I'm going to get because it's the portable aspect of it and I transfer my game over. I think more and more games that do this give the Switch a whole nother reason to be purchased by just PC gamers in general. Really, really cool to see that added in a patch, and we'll see if other games take advantage of it. But hey, good Saber Interactive followed up here with update 3.6 for The Witcher 3, so go check it out if you haven't already. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Mark saying, when all is said and done, there'll be a special edition of the PS6 with the entirety of its hard drive devoted to FF7 Remake. You know, the one thing I thought about with that 100 gigabytes being on the cover art there, right on the back for requirement was, you remember how Mark Cerny talked about how when we go to the next generation, file sizes will actually shrink as long as developers, you know, go back and maybe do backwards compatibility or change things around with the older games that come forward. You could see games, like he specifically said, Spider-Man, shrink in file size. And I almost wonder if Final Fantasy VII Remake would actually be able to take advantage of that itself, because that means that going into, like, let's be real here, they're going to do the complete edition with all of the episodes on, all of the games crammed onto this probably massive thing that looks like a Blu-ray case when you open it for a season of something that has hundreds of episodes. It'll look like that, I'm sure. But if they can shrink the file size from 100 gigabytes and take 20 or 30 gigabytes off the top just from unneeded assets and things that are doubled up so that the hard drive can get to it in time, that would actually be pretty neat to see. This is a game that will probably find its way over to the PS5 and eventually the Series X because it's a one-year exclusivity deal. So we'll see if that is a candidate for reducing the file size. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it is that Animal Crossing Direct, are you excited to see what they have in store for the Animal Crossing franchise going to the Switch next month? And then what do you think about that Coral Switch Lite, and what's the next color or theme even that you would like to see? And then frame rate versus resolution. Do you want 8K? Do you want 60 or even 120 frames per second? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.